The slap echoed through the marble hallway like a gunshot. Adana's head snapped to the side, her cheek burning, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. She kept her eyes on the floor, hands clasped in front of her black maid's uniform, waiting for permission to breathe. "Look at me when I'm speaking to you." Adana raised her eyes slowly, meeting the cold gaze of Shin Haisu. The woman stood over her like a queen surveying an insect, draped in a designer cream-colored hanbok that probably cost more than Adana's entire year's salary. Diamonds glittering at her throat and wrists, her flawless pale skin and sharp features arranged in an expression of pure contempt. She was breathtakingly beautiful and absolutely terrifying. "Do you know who I am?" Haisu's voice was soft, almost gentle. That somehow made it worse. "Yes, Miss Shin," Adana whispered. "Say it." Adana's throat tightened. "You're the Master Kang's fiancée." "That's right. I am the future Mrs. Kang Taejin, the future mistress of this house, the future queen of Busan's most powerful family." Haisu tilted her head, studying Adana like she was something unpleasant stuck to the bottom of her designer shoe. "And you are?" "A maid, Miss Shin." "A maid," Haisu smiled, and it was the cruelest thing Adana had ever seen. "Not even that. You're a foreign worker, disposable, replaceable. Do you understand what that means?" Adana said nothing. What could she say? "It means," Haisu continued, stepping closer, her perfume suffocating, "that if you ever look at Master Kang the way you looked at him during the engagement party, I will have you deported so fast your head will spin. And not just you, your mother too. I understand she's in a Lagos hospital right now. Diabetes complications. How unfortunate. Insulin is expensive, isn't it?" Adana's blood turned to ice. "I thought so." Haisu's smile widened. "One phone call, Adana. That's all it takes. One phone call and your mother's medical payments stop. Your siblings get pulled out of school. Your visa gets revoked. You'll be on a plane back to Nigeria and you'll watch your mother die knowing it was your fault. Do we understand each other?" "Yes, Miss Shin." "Good." Haisu turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and you missed a spot. On the floor, right there." She pointed to a microscopic smudge on the already gleaming marble. "Clean it again, all of it, and if it's not perfect by morning, I'll dock your wages for the week." She walked away, her expensive shoes clicking against the floor Adana had spent 6 hours scrubbing on her hands and knees. Adana waited until the footsteps faded. Then she allowed herself one shaking breath. Just one. She couldn't afford more than that. Crying didn't pay medical bills. Fear didn't save lives. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and opened the message from her younger sister in Lagos. "Mama asked about you today. She's worried you're working too hard. She wants you to come home." Adana typed back with numb fingers. "Tell her I'm fine. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm sending money next week." She didn't mention that she'd just been threatened. She didn't mention that she was trapped in a house with a woman who held her mother's life in her perfectly manicured hands. She didn't mention that she was terrified. Instead, she got back down on her knees and started scrubbing. Because that's what you did when desperation left you no other choice. But what Adana didn't know, what no one in that house knew yet, was that she'd just made a very powerful enemy. And Shin Haisu never forgot a slight, never forgave a threat, and she had just decided that Adana Okafor needed to disappear. The only question was how much blood it would take. Before we continue, please can I ask you a very simple question? Where in the world are you watching from? Please tell us in the comments section. If you're already enjoying this story of power, betrayal, and forbidden love, hit that subscribe button and stay until the end to see how a maid brought down a queen. Trust me, You won't see the ending coming. Now, let's continue.
K. Afro Tales. The weak will become strong one day.
3 weeks earlier, Adana had arrived in Busan with a worn suitcase, an expired teaching visa, and desperation eating through her chest like acid. The bus ride from Seoul had taken 4 hours. She'd spent every minute staring at the photo on her phone. Her mother lying in a hospital bed in Lagos, tubes in her arms, monitors beeping steadily. Diabetes complications, the doctors said. She needed insulin, daily monitoring, eventually dialysis. The kind of medical care that costs more money than an English literature teacher in Nigeria could make in 5 years. So Adana had done what thousands of other desperate people did. She'd taken a job she was overqualified for in a country that barely wanted her, doing work that left her hands raw and her pride in tatters. But pride didn't keep your mother alive. Pride doesn't put food on the table or keep your younger siblings in school. The Kang estate sat on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, a sprawling compound that looked more like a fortress than a home. It had high walls, security cameras, armed guards at every gate. Adana's stomach had twisted when she first saw it. This wasn't the home of a businessman. No, this was the stronghold of someone who had enemies, someone dangerous. Mrs. Huang, the head housekeeper, had met her at the service entrance. 62 years old, with steel-gray hair, pulled into a tight bun, she'd looked Adana up and down with the kind of assessment that stripped you to your bones. "You speak Korean?" "Yes, ma'am. I taught language and literature in Lagos before." "I didn't ask for your life story." Mrs. Huang's voice was clipped, efficient. "Master Kang runs a private security business. Very private, very successful. Very dangerous people come through this house. You will see nothing, hear nothing, speak to no one unless spoken to first, especially not Master Kang, and especially not Miss Shin. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Miss Shin is Master Kang's fiancée. She is particular. If she speaks to you, bow. If she gives you an order, obey immediately. If she's in a bad mood, and she usually is, stay out of her way. 3 girls have been fired this year for crossing her. I'd prefer not to train a 4th replacement." Adana had nodded, swallowing the knot of anxiety in her throat. Her room was barely large enough for a single bed and a small dresser. One window looked out over the service courtyard. It was nothing like her apartment in Lagos, nothing like the bright, cramped space she'd shared with her mother and twin siblings, but it was clean, and it was hers, and it came with a salary that was being wired directly to her mother's hospital.
That first week, Adana kept her head down and her mouth shut. She learned the rhythms of the house, when Master Kang took his morning coffee, when Miss Shin held her beauty appointments, and when the guards changed shifts. She scrubbed floors and polished silver and washed windows until her hands bled. And she watched. She watched how the other staff flinched when Miss Shin walked past, how they whispered about her in the kitchen when they thought no one was listening, how Mrs. Huang's jaw tightened every time she had to relay one of Miss Shin's increasingly cruel demands. There was another Nigerian woman on staff, Inyene, 43 years old, who'd been working for the Kang family for 3 years. She'd pulled Adana aside on the second day with a warning. "That one," Inyene jerked her head toward where Miss Shin was berating a young Filipino maid for folding towels incorrectly. "She's poison. Beautiful poison, but poison all the same. Master Kang doesn't see it because he doesn't love her. This marriage is business, an alliance between families, but she thinks she owns him, and she'll destroy anyone who threatens that ownership." "I'm just here to work," Adana had said quietly. "I'm not a threat to anyone." Inyene had given her a look that was equal parts sympathy and warning. "Honey, in this house, just existing can be a threat."
She'd been right. The engagement party happened on Adana's 8th day. 200 guests, Korean Mafia elite, politicians, and businessmen who smiled too much and laughed too loud. Adana was assigned to serve drinks, moving through the crowd like a ghost in her black uniform, offering champagne and whispering "excuse me's" in Korean. That's when she first saw Kang Tae-jin. He stood near the center of the room, surrounded by men in expensive suits who kept a respectful distance, even as they tried to curry favor. 34 years old, devastatingly handsome in that cold, untouchable way that made you want to look away but couldn't. His face was all sharp angles and aristocratic features, his black hair styled back, his dark eyes scanning the room with the kind of awareness that came from a lifetime of watching for threats. He looked bored and dangerous.
Miss Shin clung to his arm like a beautiful barnacle, showing off her engagement ring to anyone within reach. 10 carats. Platinum setting, probably cost more than Adana would make in her entire life. She was playing the perfect future wife, smiling, gracious, every inch the queen in waiting. Adana had been refilling champagne glasses near them when it happened. Miss Shin turned suddenly to greet another guest. Adana had been mid-pour, too close, unable to stop momentum. The champagne bottle tipped. Liquid arced through the air in what felt like slow motion and splashed directly onto Miss Shin's white designer dress. The room went silent. Miss Shin looked down at the spreading stain, then up at Adana, her beautiful face transformed into something ugly and twisted. "You stupid!" The slap came so fast, Adana didn't see it coming. Pain exploded across her cheek, sharp and hot. "You clumsy African trash! Do you have any idea what you've done?" Adana's ears were ringing. She could taste blood where her teeth had cut her inner cheek. 200 people stared at her. She wanted to disappear into the floor. "I'm so sorry, Miss Shin. I didn't—" Another slap, harder this time. Adana's vision swam. "Get out! Get out of my sight before I have you arrested!" "Haesu," the voice cut through the chaos like a blade, quiet, controlled, absolutely commanding. "That's enough." Kang Tae-jin was looking directly at Adana, not with pity, not with anger, just looking, like he was seeing something interesting he hadn't noticed before. "But Tae-jin, she ruined my dress!" "It was an accident." His tone didn't change, but something in his eyes went cold when he looked at his fiancée. "And you've made your point. Someone get Miss Shin a new dress." He turned back to Adana. "You, come with me." Adana's heart hammered as she followed him through the crowd, aware of every eye tracking their movement. He led her to a private study off the main hall. Walls lined with books, a massive desk, the kind of room that smelled like expensive leather and old money. He closed the door and turned to face her. "What's your name?" "Adana Okafor, sir." Her voice came out shakier than she wanted. "Nigerian." "Yes, sir." He studied her for a long moment. "You're bleeding." He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to her. "Your mouth." Adana pressed it to her lip, tasting copper. "Thank you, sir." "Why are you here, in Korea, doing this work?" The question surprised her into honesty. "My mother is sick in Lagos. She needs medical care I can't afford on a teacher's salary." Something flickered in his eyes. "You were a teacher?" "Yes, sir. English literature." "Jesus shouldn't have hit you." Adana said nothing. What could she say? That she agreed? That she was furious? That she wanted to hit back but couldn't because she needed this job more than she needed her dignity? "From tomorrow, you're reassigned. Personal attendant to my private quarters. Mrs. Wang will explain the duties." Adana's stomach dropped. "Sir, Miss Shin won't—"
I don't recall asking for Miss Shin's opinion. His voice was flat, final. You're dismissed. Adana fled before he could see the tears finally spilling over. That night, lying in her narrow bed, she should have been relieved. But Miss Shin wasn't done yet. She had continued her assault and humiliation after the engagement party, and Adana knew deep inside that the wicked, beautiful poison wasn't done with her. Yes, a promotion meant more money meant better care for her mother, but all she could think about was the look on Miss Shin's face as she'd been led away, the fury, the humiliation, the promise of revenge. Yen had found her the next morning, eyes wide. What? What? Master Kong's private quarters? Do you have any idea what you've done? Su will destroy you. I didn't ask for the reassignment. Doesn't matter. She'll see it as a threat. Yen gripped her shoulders. Listen to me carefully. Keep your head down. Do your job. Don't talk to him unless he talks first. Don't look at him unless necessary. And for the love of God, stay away from Su. But staying away from Su proved impossible when Su was hunting you.
The attacks started small. An accidentally spilled tea that scalded Adana's hand. Impossible tasks assigned with impossible deadlines. Wages docked for imaginary infractions. Whispers spread through the staff that Adana was trying to seduce Master Kang, that she was a gold digger, that she'd slept her way into the promotion. None of it was true, but the truth didn't matter when Shin Heisu wanted you gone. Meanwhile, Adana found herself spending more time in Kang Tai-jin's private wing. Her duties were simple: organize his study, serve his meals, and manage his personal schedule. But the work brought her into contact with him in ways that felt dangerous. He was nothing like she'd expected. She'd assumed he'd be cruel, violent, the kind of man who ruled through fear and enjoyed it. But when they were alone, away from the performance of power he wore like armor, she saw glimpses of something else, something almost human. He found her reading one of his books one evening, Han Kung's The Vegetarian. She'd been so absorbed she hadn't heard him enter the study. You read Korean literature? Adana nearly dropped the book. I'm sorry, sir. I asked a question, not an accusation. She swallowed. Yes, sir. I taught it before I came here. He sat down across from her, and for the first time she saw genuine interest in his eyes. What do you think of it, the book? I think... She hesitated, then decided honesty couldn't make things worse. I think it's about the violence we do to ourselves trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for us, about what happens when you'd rather starve than keep eating poison. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It transformed his entire face. That's the best analysis I've heard. Most people just talk about the vegetarianism. Most people miss the point. And you don't? I try not to. She set the book down carefully. Is there something you need, sir? The smile faded. Everyone in this house wants something from me. Money, protection, power. They pretend to care because they're terrified not to. But you, he leaned forward slightly, you don't want anything except to do your job and save your mother. That's honest. No one is honest with me. Adana met his eyes. Maybe they're afraid honesty will get them hurt. Are you afraid of me?
She should have said yes, should have bowed and scraped and played the role. Instead, she heard herself say, I've seen worse than you, good sir. Poverty is scarier than power. Something shifted in his expression, something that made her heart beat faster. Call me Taejin when we're alone. That wouldn't be appropriate, sir. Neither is most of what happens in this house. He stood, moving to the window. My parents arranged this engagement when I was 16. Heisu was 14, an alliance between families. She gets status and protection. I get her family's political connections and territory. No one asked if we loved each other. Love was never part of the equation. Adana didn't know what to say to that. "Do you believe in love, Adana?" The question caught her off guard. "I believe in duty, family, taking care of the people who depend on you." That's not the same thing. Maybe not, but it's real. Love can fail you. Duty doesn't. He turned to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her want to look away. She didn't, couldn't. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. "Neither are you, sir." The moment stretched between them, dangerous and electric. Then he stepped back, the distance returning. "Good night, Adana." "Good night, sir." She left before she could do something stupid, like stay. That night, Jesus cornered her in the hallway. The slap that opened this story, the threats, the promise to destroy not just Adana, but her mother, her siblings, everyone she loved. And Adana, for the first time since arriving in this country, felt genuine fear. But fear, she was learning, could be transformed into something else, something harder, something that burned. Don't go anywhere. This is where everything changes. Hit that like button if you're ready to see how a maid becomes a queen. The weeks that followed were a careful dance on the edge of a knife.
Adana did everything Jesus demanded. Every impossible task, every humiliating order, every casual cruelty. She bit her tongue until it bled and kept her head down and counted the days until she could send money home. But something was shifting in the house. Kang Tae-jin had started seeking her out, not for anything inappropriate. He never touched her, never made advances. He just talked about books, about philosophy, about the weight of running an empire built on violence when all you wanted was peace. "Do you know what I did yesterday?" he asked her one night, voice flat. "I ordered a man's death. He stole from me, embezzled 3 million won. The penalty for that, in my world, is death. So I gave the order, and this morning he was found in the harbor with a bullet in his head." Adana kept folding his shirts, hands steady, even as her heart raced. "Do you want me to tell you it was wrong? I want you to tell me the truth." She set down the shirt and looked at him. "The truth is that violence creates more violence. That man had a family. Now they'll want revenge, and the cycle continues. So yes, it was wrong, but I also know that in your world, showing mercy is seen as weakness, and weakness gets you killed. You're trapped in a system you didn't create. That doesn't make you innocent, but it doesn't make you a monster either." He stared at her. "Everyone else in this house would have told me I did the right thing, that I had no choice. You did have a choice, you just didn't like the options. And what would you have done? I would have found a different way, but I'm not you. I don't have your responsibilities or your enemies." She met his eyes. "You asked for the truth. That's the truth. You're not a good man, sir, but I don't think you're beyond redemption either." That's the kindest condemnation I've ever received. It wasn't meant to be kind. It was meant to be honest, sir. He moved closer, and she could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" Because fear doesn't change anything. And because I think beneath all this," she gestured at the expensive study, the displays of wealth and power. "You're just a man who's tired of pretending." "Pretending what?" "That you don't care, that you don't want something different, that you're happy being feared instead of respected." His hand came up, almost touching her face, then dropped. "You're dangerous. I'm a maid." "No. You're the first person in 15 years who's looked at me and seen a human being instead of a weapon.
That's far more dangerous than any gun. Adana's breath caught. The air between them felt charged, heavy with something she absolutely could not name, because naming it would make it real. I should go, sir. Stay. His voice was rough. Please, just talk to me, like I'm normal.
So she did. They talked until 3 in the morning about everything and nothing, about Nigerian folktales and Korean history, about her dream of opening a library for underprivileged children in Lagos, about his secret love of poetry that no one knew about because it didn't fit the image of the ruthless crime boss. It was the most dangerous thing she'd ever done. Because somewhere between the books and the late nights and the careful conversations, Adana had done something incredibly stupid. She'd fallen in love with Kang Tae-jin. And God help them both, she was pretty sure he'd fallen in love with her, too. Hae-soo knew it before either of them admitted it. She'd been watching, cataloging, every private conversation, every moment they thought they were alone. She had the entire house wired. Cameras in the study, microphones in the hallways. She saw everything. And what she saw made her want to burn the entire world down, burn everything to ashes. 3 weeks after that first private conversation, Hae-soo made her move. She cornered Adana in the service quarters where the cameras didn't reach. No witnesses, just the two of them in a narrow hallway. "He's falling in love with you." Hae-soo's voice was eerily calm. "I can see it. The way he looks at you, the way he smiles when you're around. He never smiled at me like that. Not once in 20 years. Adana pressed herself against the wall. "Miss Shin, I haven't done anything." "You existed." Hae-soo stepped closer. "That was enough. You came into this house with your education and your dignity and your quiet strength, and you made him see what I could never be. Someone genuine, someone who doesn't want him for his power, someone he could actually love, huh?" I'm leaving." Adana tried to move past her. Hae-soo grabbed her arm, grip bruising. "Do you know what I've sacrificed for this marriage? 20 years of my life, 20 years of being the perfect daughter, the perfect fiancée, the perfect future wife, playing the role, waiting, and then you, some nobody from Nigeria, walk in and take it all away in 3 weeks? Let go of me." "I gave you a chance to leave. You should have taken it." Hae-soo pulled out her phone. "This is your mother's hospital, yes? St. Augustine's in Lagos." She showed Adana the screen, pulled up the hospital's payment portal, her mother's account. "1 tap, that's all it takes. I stop the payments. Your mother loses her care. She dies, and it will be your fault." Adana's world tilted. "You can't." "I can. I will, unless you do exactly what I tell you." Hae-soo smiled that horrible smile. "You're going to quit, tonight. You're going to tell Mrs. Hwang that you're needed back home, family emergency, and you're going to leave Korea and never come back. If you do this, I'll ensure your mother gets care for the next year, free, anonymous donation. But if you stay," her finger hovered over the screen, "I tap this button and she's dead within a week."
Adana's knees went weak. "Why are you doing this?" "Because this is war, and in war, you eliminate threats." Hae-soo leaned in close. "You have until morning. Choose wisely." She walked away, leaving Adana shaking in the hallway. That night, Adana packed her suitcase with numb hands. What choice did she have? Her mother's medical care or her own heart? It wasn't even a question. She was sealing the last bag when her door opened. Kang Tae-jin stood in the doorway, and the look on his face broke something in her chest. "You're leaving." It wasn't a question. "I have to." He stepped inside, closing the door. "She threatened you." "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me. What did she threaten?" Adana's hands shook as she tried to zip the suitcase. "My mother's medical care,
If I stay, she stops the payments. My mother dies. I can't—" Her voice cracked. "I can't let that happen." "So you're choosing your mother over what?" She whirled to face him, tears finally falling. "Over being your secret? Over waiting while you marry her? Over loving you from the shadows while she destroys everyone I care about? There's no choice here. There was never a choice." He crossed the room in 3 strides and cupped her face in his hands. "Don't go. Give me one reason to stay." "Because I love you." The words came out rough, like they'd been torn from somewhere deep. "Because in 3 weeks, you've shown me what my life could be like if I had the courage to choose it. Because you're the only honest thing in my entire world. Because the thought of you leaving makes me want to burn this whole house down." Adana closed her eyes against the tears. "Your love doesn't save my mother. It doesn't change the fact that Haisu holds all the power. It doesn't—" He kissed her, desperate and fierce, and full of everything they couldn't say. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. "I'll end the engagement. I'll protect your family. I'll give you whatever you need. You'll start a war. Her family won't accept that humiliation. People will die." "Then let them die. I'm done sacrificing my life for alliances that were never mine to make. Tae-jin, stay." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Please, let me fight for you. Let me be worthy of you." And God help her, she wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that love could conquer politics and power and the twisted system they were trapped in. "If I stay," she whispered, "Haisu will destroy us both. Then we'll destroy her first."
What Adana didn't know was that Inyene had been recording the entire conversation through the cracked door. What neither of them knew was that Haisu had been listening too, through the microphones she'd planted. And what none of them knew was that Haisu had already made a phone call to her uncle, Director Shin of the rival Shin crime family, a man who'd been waiting 20 years for a chance to take down Kang Tae-jin. The engagement ceremony was in 5 days, and Haisu had just signed both their death warrants. Stay watching. The real war is about to begin, and nobody is ready for what comes next. The next morning, Adana woke to someone shaking her shoulder. Inyene stood over her, eyes wide with fear. "We have a problem." Adana sat up, head foggy. "What?" "Haisu knows about you and Master Kang, about last night. She knows everything." Ice flooded Adana's veins. "How?" "Cameras, microphones, this whole house is wired." Inyene pulled out her phone. "But that's not the worst part. I was cleaning near her quarters this morning. She was on the phone with her uncle, Director Shin. They're planning something bad." "What kind of something?" "A coup at the engagement ceremony. They're going to kill Master Kang and you. They're going to make it look like a rival family did it. Then Haisu's family takes over the Kang Empire." Adana's mind raced. "We have to warn him. If we go to him now, Haisu will know we know. She'll move up the timeline. We need proof, real proof, not just overheard conversations. Can you record her? Get her to talk about the plan again?" Inyene hesitated. "That's dangerous. More dangerous than staying silent while they commit murder?" So Inyene became a spy. Over the next 3 days, she positioned herself near Haisu's quarters, cleaning where she could listen, recording every phone call she could capture. It was terrifying work. One wrong move and Haisu would know, and then they'd both disappear. But Inyene was brave, braver than anyone gave her credit for. On the 3rd day, she got what they needed. Haisu's voice, crystal clear. 5 days, at the engagement ceremony. When I cut the cake, that's the signal. Your men open fire. Kill Tae-jin first, then the maid. Make it look like the Choi family. Once he's dead, we take everything.
Director Shin's response, "And you're sure you want to go through with this? Once we start, there's no going back." Heisu laughing, "I've been going back for 20 years. I'm done waiting. If he won't marry me willingly, I'll take what's mine by force." Inyene had been recording from the hallway, hidden behind a cleaning cart. But Heisu had sensed something. She'd opened the door suddenly, catching Inyene with the phone in her hand. "What are you doing?" Inyene ran, pure instinct, down the hallway, Heisu chasing her, screaming for security. They'd crashed through the service wing, Inyene clutching the phone like her life depended on it. Because it did. Adana had heard the commotion and come running. She'd found them in a standoff, Heisu blocking the exit, security guards approaching from both sides. Inyene backed into a corner. "Give me the phone." Heisu's voice was deadly calm. "Now." "No."
Heisu pulled a small knife from her dress, decorative but sharp. "I said, give me the phone." That's when Adana stepped between them. "You're going to have to go through me first." Haisu's laugh was unhinged. "Gladly." She'd lunged. Adana had blocked her arm, but the knife caught her shoulder, tearing fabric and skin. Blood bloomed across her uniform. The pain was white-hot, but Adana didn't let go of Haisu's wrist. "Inyene, run! Get to Master Kang, now!" Inyene had hesitated only a second before sprinting toward the main wing, guards chasing her. Heisu screamed in fury and slashed again, but Adana held on, using every ounce of strength from growing up in Lagos, where you learned to fight or you didn't survive. Mrs. Huang had appeared then, along with more guards. The knife clattered to the floor. Heisu was screaming that Adana had attacked her, that Inyene was a thief, that they should both be arrested. But Inyene had made it to Tae-jin's wing, and she'd made it to Rei-hyun, Tae-jin's second-in-command. Rei-hyun had listened to the recording with a face like stone. Then he'd made one phone call, and everything had changed. Within an hour, Heisu was in custody. Director Shin's men had been identified and quietly arrested as they arrived for security detail. The engagement venue was surrounded by Tae-jin's people instead. And Tae-jin Heisu had listened to the recording of the woman he was supposed to marry, planning his murder. The confrontation happened in his office. Heisu dragged in by guards, still screaming her innocence. Tae-jin behind his desk, expression unreadable. Adana standing to the side, shoulder bandaged, refusing to leave. "Explain." Tae-jin's voice was flat, dangerous. "This is a setup. That recording is fake. She did this." She pointed at Adana. "She's been trying to destroy me from the beginning." Tae-jin played the recording again. Haisu's voice, clear and unmistakable, planning his death. "That's not me. Someone doctored." "There are 5 other recordings," Rei-hyun said quietly, "all from different days, all showing premeditation, all with your voice, your phone number, your uncle's voice confirmed by audio analysis. This wasn't a setup. This was you." The fight drained out of Heisu. She looked at Tae-jin with something like desperation. "You were supposed to love me. 20 years. I gave you 20 years, and you threw it away for some African nobody who reads your books and makes you feel things. Well, I feel things too. I feel rage. I feel betrayed. So yes, I planned to kill you, because if I couldn't have you, no one would, especially not her." The silence that followed was deafening. Tae-jin stood slowly, walked around the desk, stopped in front of Heisu. "You never loved me. You loved what I represented, the power, the status, the image. You wanted to be Mrs. Kang, queen of Busan's underworld. You never wanted me. And what does he give you that I couldn't?"
He looked at Adana. Honesty, compassion, the courage to want me to be better instead of just more powerful. She sees me as a person. You only ever saw me as a crown to wear." Jesu's face crumpled, but there was no sympathy in the room. "The engagement is over. Your uncle will be dealt with, and you," he leaned close, "you threatened the woman I love. You tried to kill me. There is no mercy for that. You're done, Jesu. The Shin family is finished." As the guards dragged her away, Jesus screamed one last thing. "You'll regret this! My family will—" "Your family has no power anymore." Taejin's voice was cold. "I've already absorbed your territory. Your allies have switched sides. Your uncle is in custody. You have nothing left. You are nothing." The door slammed behind her. The screaming faded. Taejin turned to Adana, and suddenly he wasn't the cold crime boss anymore. He was just a man who'd almost lost everything. "You're hurt. It's just a scratch. You put yourself between her and a knife. I put myself between her and Inyene. The knife was incidental." He crossed to her in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms, careful of her injured shoulder. "Don't ever do that again." "Do what?" "Risk yourself. For me. For anyone." "That's rich coming from you." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "I mean it. You—" His voice cracked. "You're the only good thing in my life. If I lost you—" "You won't." She touched his face. "But you need to understand something. I didn't stay for you. I stayed because it was right. Because someone needed to stop her. Because my mother didn't raise me to run when things get hard." She smiled. "The fact that I happen to love you is just convenient." He kissed her then, soft and desperate and full of promises neither of them knew if they could keep. "Marry me." Adana blinked. "What? I know it's insane. I know it's fast. I know I'm asking you to tie your life to someone who's made terrible choices and has more enemies than friends. But I love you, and I want everyone to know it. So marry me, please."
She should have said no. Should have been practical. Should have remembered that this was a crime boss who just destroyed a rival family and that happy endings didn't exist for people like them. Instead, she heard herself say yes. And somewhere in the back of her mind, she heard her mother's voice from a phone call. "Baby, I didn't raise you to play it safe. I raised you to recognize what's worth fighting for. If he's worth fighting for, then fight." So she would fight. They both would. Because love wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. Keep watching. You need to see how this impossible love story reshapes an entire empire. And trust me, the ending will leave you breathless. 3 months later, the Kang estate looked different. Not in structure. The walls were still high, the security still tight, but in atmosphere. In the way staff moved through the halls without fear. In the way Taejin held meetings where he asked questions instead of issuing threats. In the way the violence that had defined his empire for decades slowly transformed into something that almost resembled legitimacy. It wasn't easy. Change never was. Taejin's traditionalist lieutenants pushed back against every reform. Protection rackets became security consultations. Loan sharking became financial advising. Territory disputes were settled through negotiation instead of bloodshed, where possible. Some people called it weakness, called Taejin soft, said the African maid had ruined him. Rayun had pulled Adana aside one afternoon with a warning. "The old guard is restless. They think you've made him vulnerable. They're not wrong. So what do you suggest?" "I suggest you watch your back, because some of them are loyal to the old ways more than they're loyal to him." But Adana wasn't afraid. She'd faced down Shin Hasu. Everything else seemed manageable by comparison. Besides, she had her own mission now. Her mother had arrived 2 weeks ago, diabetes under control, smiling and healthy for the first time in years. Her twin siblings, 15-year-old Chidi and Amara, were enrolled in the international school in Busan, adapting to Korean life with the resilience of teenagers. Her family was safe, together and thriving. And Adana had negotiated something else, a scholarship fund. Money from the Kang organization's more legitimate enterprises now funded education for underprivileged Nigerian students studying in Korea. It was small, but it was a start. "You're changing me," Tai-jen had said one night as they reviewed the scholarship applications together in his study. "I'm not changing you. I'm just giving you permission to be who you've always wanted to be. A better man. A whole man. Not just the violent parts, not just the powerful parts. All of it." He'd kissed her forehead. "How did I get this lucky? You spilled coffee on a psychopath's dress and rescued the maid. Good karma." They laughed. Actually laughed. Something that would have been unthinkable 4 months ago.
He kissed her forehead. What happened to the woman who said love was weakness? She met someone who taught her that love isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing we have, strong enough to change empires, strong enough to break curses, strong enough to save us both. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. They stood there as the stars came out, holding each other, facing an uncertain future with something that felt dangerously close to hope. And Adana thought about her mother's words from years ago. The world will try to make you small, baby. It will try to convince you that your dreams don't matter, that your voice doesn't count, that girls like us don't get happy endings. Don't believe it. Fight for your space. Fight for your joy. Fight for your future, because you are not small. You are infinite, and the world needs to see that. So she would keep fighting. They both would. Because this wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of something impossible, something that started with a maid, a coffee stain, and the courage to believe that even in the darkest places, love could take root and grow. Everyone had feared Shin Hae-soo, the ice queen of Busan, the untouchable fiancée of Korea's most dangerous man, but she'd forgotten something important. Ice melts when it encounters fire, and Adana Okafor had always been flame. If this story of impossible love, dangerous power, and redemption moved you, subscribe to this channel for more stories that will keep you up at night. Drop a comment telling me which part hit you hardest. What would you have done if you were in Adana's shoes? And remember, the most powerful force in the world isn't violence. It's the courage to choose love when everything tells you to choose fear. Until next time, stay blessed, and remember.
K Afro Tales. The weak will become strong one day.